All right, everybody. So next we have another panel coming up. We will have Designing for Plurality with Audrey Tang, Glen Weyl, and Nishio Hirokazu.
I'm Glen Weyl. I'm the founder of the Radical Exchange Foundation, the Plurality Institute, and the Microsoft Research Plural Technology Collaboratory, and I'm co-author with Audrey of the book that you've probably seen outside, Digital Shui Plurality, The Future of Collaborative Technology and Democracy, which is a joint project with Audrey, but also with a community of dozens of people from around the world. And it's the first fully open source, global, democratically governed book. And Audrey, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. I'm Audrey. This is my third panel today. I'm really happy to be here after served for 8 years as Taiwan's digital minister. In a sense, the Plurality project is a distillation of the kind of work we did in Taiwan over the past decade. But I think the world can learn a little bit from Taiwan, and I also want to learn from the world on how to take this model, this idea of collaborative technology into more jurisdictions and maybe evolve even more than what we have achieved in Taiwan.
And Nishio has really been anchoring the plurality community in Japan. So Nishio, do you want to introduce
Yes, I'm a leader of translation team into Japanese. I'm translating. I'm a leader of translation team doing Japanese version of Plurality book. Yes, sorry. Thank you.
Great. Okay, perfect. Wonderful. So this book, as I said, it's both by Audrey and myself, but also by this global community. Japan is probably, except for maybe Taiwan, the country with the most contributors. And those contributors are blended in this image you see above, and then tiled with the individual contributors' images. And it responds to something that I think is much more of a Western than a Japanese frame. And in fact, I think they changed this a bit in the Japanese version. But the conflict between democracy and technology that you often hear about, where people feel that technology is fueling polarization, driving mis and disinformation, and therefore undermining democratic systems. And at the same time, many technologists feel that democracy has it out for them. Their democracies are trying to regulate, they're trying to restrict, they're trying to stop technology rather than supporting it, and that authoritarian regimes are investing much more as investment goes down in democratic countries. And the reason we believe for this is because the two dominant stories that you hear about the future of technology are basically antithetical to democracy. On the one hand, you hear about a giant AI does everything for you, everyone gets a universal basic income, and we're all just kind of happy with whatever we get. We call this idea technocracy. It's very associated with AI, with people like Reid Hoffman, and books like Deep Utopia by Nick Bostrom. On the other hand, there's a vision very popular in the crypto world where you're going to use Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies to replace the need for governments, replace the need for communities, replace the need for religions and trade unions and so forth. And instead, you're going to have sort of anarcho-capitalism governing everything. This is very associated with books like The Network State, Sovereign Individual, and the Republican Party in the United States just nominated for vice president an adherent of this philosophy, Mr. Vance. But we believe that there's another vision that underlies a lot of the technologies we use every day, like the internet and personal computing, as well as many pop cultural things like Star Trek, or here in Japan, Doraemon and Mirai-Con Museum. And this vision is just as grounded, but maybe less clearly articulated. And that's kind of our goal. And we really have three principles in this idea that we call plurality. The first is that society is not made up of isolated individuals and a social whole, but instead diverse, intersecting groups that intersect to make both personal identity and the social fabric. And we represent that with this universal coded character, one of the ones that is least commonly used and therefore sort of not attached to any particular language, these intersecting squares. And this is the way in which Hannah Arendt, the great social philosopher, used the term plurality. And so this is associated with her thinking. Second is a vision of what the world should be like, which is that social diversity holds energy. That energy often explodes as conflicts and gets dissipated as heat, but instead societies will succeed to the extent that they manage to harness the energy implicit in social diversity for progress and co-creation. And the rainbow that's at the center of our symbol represents this idea, and we associate it with the work of philosopher Danielle Allen on the idea of a connected society. And finally, we use plurality to represent a strategy of what we should do, which is that the role of digital technology is not to build the giant machine that does everything for us. It's not to replace community and trust. Instead, it is to harness the energy of social diversity for progress. And we represent this to build the engines that do that. You know, just like industrial technology built engines to harness the implicit energy of fossil fuels, nuclear did it for the atom, we're going to do that for social diversity. And we use these kanji to represent that in traditional Mandarin are shu wei, which means both digital and plural. And that we associate with Audrey's work. And this is very much played out in Taiwan, increasingly playing out in Japan, as we've learned today. Taiwan is the wealthiest country in terms of median income for any country with more than 10 million people at purchasing power parity. And it has the largest digital economy. 50% of its economy comes from the export of digital technology. And yet, while many say that that should increase inequality in Taiwan over the last decade, when they've had this incredible digital democracy movement, they've actually seen a slight decline in inequality. While democracy is declining in the rest of the world, Taiwan has actually risen in many indices to be the freest and fairest democracy in the world, even though it's only 35 years old. But this does not come from, as many people have claimed to us, it being a small homogeneous island. In fact, Taiwan a decade ago saw a 3-week-long occupation of their national parliament by students, not 3 hours as we saw in the US. It was nonviolent, however, and it helped launch this movement that we were just describing. But even a decade after that, I went to observe their elections, rated by many as the freest and fairest in the world in January. They were really remarkable in how profound the divides are within Taiwanese society over identity. I went to the ruling party's rally, and everyone was waving green flags, rainbow flags, pictures of the island. I went to the opposition rally, and everyone was waving pictures of the national flag. And so you're talking about a jurisdiction here where the government doesn't even use the official name of the jurisdiction in English and doesn't really use the flag. So there's a very profound divide, and yet rather than that divide turning into conflict, turning into violence, turning into heat, they've found a way to channel this towards progress and growth and improvement. How have they done that? Well, they've opened it up to the citizens to remake the government. What do I mean? They have this government websites at .g0v. People can download these and improve on them and put them up at .gov.tw and shame the government into adopting them. And this was the basis of them having the world's best performance in combating COVID, while without any lockdowns, with one of the fastest economic growth rates. Similarly, when people in Taiwan are very upset and want to speak on social media, they can, rather than going to a system that tries to harness that energy to sell them products, they can instead harness that energy to make laws by finding consensus across those differences, and through their system V Taiwan that clusters different opinions and then surfaces the things that bridge those clusters. They've managed to have 20 pieces of legislation addressing a range of controversial issues, and recently including issues around AI alignment, like we were hearing about, using a related system. So I hope that some of you will want to join in this process, like many folks here in Japan already have. The book is fully open source, collaborative, and you're very welcome to help us improve it. And with that, I want to give you a visual, emotive representation of what this looks like by playing you a short video. Can you play the video? It links directly from that, if you just click on it. Yep, it should open just click on that slide and you should get the video. Is it not working? Otherwise, I'll give you the address, plurality.net. If you click on enjoy, you'll see the video.
While we're waiting on the video, maybe I think a lot of the work that we've been doing in the Plurality.net project is not about prescribing exactly what to do, but rather presenting a toolkit of potentials. So if you click enjoy, you will see the good enough ancestor. And that is not meant to say that you should also occupy your parliament. It is meant to say that there are a set of tools to use. So you can play maybe in full screen.
Make sure the volume goes.
No, there's no voice. No.
18th consecutive year. Across the world, democracy is on a decline.
Authoritarianism is on the rise.
Global freedom has eroded for the 18th consecutive year. Audrey Tang, what is your greatest hope for democracy across the globe?
That it has higher bandwidth.
Yes, exactly.
People see democracy as
Yeah, maybe we wait for the buffering. Maybe you click pause and then you wait it for download. But I think the thing here is that we can see democracy as a social technology. And whereas we had to wait for 4 years for a vote that is very long latency, and each vote is just for one out of many candidates, that's very low bit rate. We want to increase that.
Democracy is on a decline.
What is your greatest hope for democracy across the globe?
that people see democracy as a social technology, something that people can construct together, that they can improve in the here and
I don't think that works. Sorry. Yeah.
It buffered all the way and then you switched.
No, it's fine. Yeah. So So in the here and now. So no, but I can auto-complete this. Yeah, sure. It's now fully buffered. And if you go ahead, yes.
a social technology, something that people can construct together, that they
Okay. No, let's just forget about this. Yeah.
in the here and now, we can.
No, it's okay. Forget about that. Not a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with that, we really just want to take questions from you all about this. That's the main goal, because we want to be a platform for you all making a difference and you already are doing incredible things in that way. So how can we help?
Yes. And there's like more than 10 minutes, so feel free to start asking questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really like that you gave us the key word, and it's not because it's a homogeneous society. And I think like the term homogeneity is almost a dog whistle. And I love some more words of encouragement, how, let's say, we don't have to let us be defined by things like that, and we can still feel connected and think that this kind of progress is possible anywhere, despite the like ethnic makeup, for example, of a society. I think that would be really important for me to hear.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the work that we're doing is to highlight that even though that we're designing technologies as technologists, we ourselves as technologists are not simply labeled as technologists. Each of us belong to many communities, maybe place-based community, maybe purpose-based communities, maybe spirituality communities, and so on. And so if we imbue in the technologies that we design this inherent plurality that we are belonging to multiple different groups, then it tends to have the valence, the kind of links that can link us together across the social distances. Whereas if we code things up in a vacuum and only thinking about everybody's adoption or engagement of our simple platform, then that is homogeneous. That is kind of the path to singularity. And so the idea of plurality, rather than saying that there must be one way to implement plurality, in the book we show at least 7 different dimensions, among which you can deepen the connection in the group communities you are in, or you can expand the number that you can broadly listen, and everything in between. And so this toolkit approach, rather than a solutionism approach, I think is the key to overcome this tendency to simply say, let's build a huge platform, a flat platform, connect the world, and create a lot of negative externalities.
Thanks. So my question is, at your talk earlier today, you were talking about the different pieces that we need to make this. So do you think any pieces are still missing? And if not, what do you think is the biggest bottleneck, like the weakest link that deserves like the most attention right now?
That's a great question. I think it differs from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. There are some jurisdictions, like here in Japan or in Taiwan, where the social fabric of trust is already high. And so what is really needed is just proof of concepts that gets people's imaginations into a different kind of technology that can scale well beyond the existing scale of community. On the other hand, there are jurisdictions in which polarization is already so high, so that if you do not show that you can build bridges across those polarizations, then no matter how scalable your work is, they will not use those building toolkits to bridge the social divides. So I think the number one question to ask really is that how fragmented, how polarized, how damaged is the trust fabric? If it's very damaged, then you start from the small layers, small distances of healing, even just within smaller communities of 10 people or 100 people. But in societies like in Japan, where the trust level is already high, then maybe the missing link is actually the leap of faith that shows, oh, this model can work with much more people, a much larger jurisdiction, or even internationally.
So, relating to the previous questions, so in some countries, there are a lot of the protests going on, but it also that has a meaning of the demonstration. Yes. So there's always a mixture. This is what I feel. But your discussion, the more recommend people to focus on the demonstration. Yes. So does it mean that those areas that the people should gradually move on to the more demonstration focus, or mixture can be lasted for a while? Or
Yeah, I mean, protest, outrage are still useful in that it focuses people's energy, right, on an issue that urgently need clarity. But you cannot just have counterpower without the subsequent network-making power. If all you have is counterpower, like many Occupy movements, they end up going nowhere because there is no network that can form as an alternate way for people to place their energy into. So you need the initial counterpower a little bit to highlight the urgency, but more than that, you need clarity. And plurality is all about practical ways that you can then harness this conflict, this energy, into clarity. I think in Taiwan and also maybe in Japan, in many East Asian cultures, when we see the protests, when we see the conflict, one instinct is to distance us away from it because we don't want to confront the conflict. We would simply want the fire to run its course and pray that it doesn't spread, right? But if sometimes we see fire and we think, oh, there's energy underneath, we can drill down, there's oil underneath, we can use it for energy, then we equip ourselves with the kind of fireproof way of using this energy for something that you can place your trust in. And so trusting the instinct of the protesters requires our inner trust. We need to both hold the counterpower in our mind, but also have space in our mind that says, by the way, you can also use this to harness this power to build an alternative. And so keeping both sides in one's own mind is a requirement to turn the protesting energy into demonstration.
Yeah, I think I like the analogy of the engine. You know, the demonstration is the engine, and the protest is the fuel. And engine doesn't work without fuel, and fuel without engine is dangerous. So.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. In Japan, it is kind of like bureaucratic society now, I think. So you want to realize kind of digital democracies. But in order to realize that we have to tackle with such traditional groups, traditional bureaucratic groups. So is it possible to like talk with each other and collaborate with such traditional groups? How do you do that?
Yeah, in Taiwan, when we started introducing such ideas in 2014, like with Free Taiwan and so on, we never went to the policymaker, the senior people, and say, we're replacing you with crowdsourcing. We're replacing you with the wisdom of the internet. We don't say that. We say that we help you to see things better, like this eyeglass, right? It's assistive technology. You put it on, you see things more clearly. You can see more ideas from the society so that it's less risk for you. Because if you don't have this kind of eyeglass and you miss the issues that people think are important, then you ended up getting occupied or people becoming very upset with the policymaker. So in a sense, this is in design thinking, it is better discovery and a better definition of the shared issue. It is the first diamond in the double diamond model. It does not directly challenge the power to develop solutions or to deliver them. That is still within the parliamentary system or the budget system or the bureaucratic system. So for many bureaucrats, to adopt this kind of assistive technology for them, assistive collective intelligence for them. This is lower risk and also save their time. And if you can prove again and again, as we did over 100 or more collaborative meetings, none of which result in explosion, and all of which results in reducing some risk, then the career public servants, the bureaucrats, are actually your best friends because they're always there. No matter how the ministers change, no matter how the president or legislator change, the mid-level career public servants will see the use of such tools. And once they have internalized the use of such tools, even in the education system, then you have a generation of public servants that are your natural allies when it comes to digital democracy. So don't just go to the president or the mayor or the minister and push them. You can walk with the career public service and say, this is like eyeglasses for you.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to especially encourage if there's anyone who identifies as a woman in the audience who wants to ask a question. Oh, you want to ask something? Okay. Nishio, yeah.
I just want to announcement. My presentation for this session was accidentally skipped by miscommunication. So I put it on YouTube and announced on Twitter. Please watch it later. Thank you. Any other question?
Maybe one final question?
Yeah.
Sure. One more. Yeah. I think there's one over there. Sure.
Thank you very much for the talk. I'm lucky. So I'm very curious about the media. So I completely agree with the concept of plurality. But what we observed during the election in Tokyo Metropolitan Government, so each candidate is connected to each media. Right? So the governor itself is connected to the mass media. And second person, Ishimaru-san, is connected to the YouTube short video. And third one is Renho-san is connected to the X and the actual demo. So when we create the ecosystem place of the plurality, sometimes it's a little bit different because they rely on the different medias, right, or tools. So do you have any ideas or thoughts about the differences of the media they rely on?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, currently there are social media companies that are already really building an affinity to the ideas of the Plurality book. In the book, we already talk about community notes on x.com, and YouTube recently just adopted community notes. And I think rather than asking yourself to adapt to the logic of the social media companies or traditional media and so on, we also encourage you to think about how you can leverage the use of plurality or the bridge-making algorithms and so on, for example, to make sure that you make full use of community notes, the full use of Wikipedia, the full use of collaborative media for this kind of campaign. Because if you use the logic of the existing media, then you're basically condensing your message into something that's more one-dimensional. But as the social media scene itself is expanding to higher dimensions and to also build more bridges across different dimensions, we can also take advantage of that and then join there. That is partly why I really believe in the Fediverse. I joined Mastodon many years ago, and now with Threads.net also start interoperating with the Fediverse. I think there's some real work to be done to separate the publishing layer with the curation layer. And a lot of the work that we do for the plurality work can happen at the curation layer, independent of the underlying publishing layer.
All right, we'll actually take 2 more questions since this is the last panel. Okay. All right, you and you, minutes are out.
Hi. Do you think the idea of plurality can be applied to international relation as well?
Internal relation, like within a school, within...
International.
Oh, international.
International, yeah, country to country.
Yeah, in a sense, yes. I mean, there are many like interoperable systems that really need to work together across different nations. So a classical example is the X-Road system that was built with Iceland and Estonia and Finland together, technical interoperability. And recently we have seen many people building on the decentralized identifiers, verifiable credentials, and so on, so that by definition it takes on a international interoperability status. And so in all these different terms, the idea of plurality all applies because it is about making sure that as more people adopt those interoperable standards, more people can meaningfully steer the direction of the future governance of such standards. And so in standard making bodies, or even in like NATO with interoperating cybersecurity or some other digital means, we see more and more people more willing to adopt this kind of listening at scale or deliberative technologies, because they also reach more stakeholders and they want more rich feedback from those stakeholders. So I think a lot of the work we do on the policy chapter in the book talks specifically about how to identify the digital public infrastructures that are more amenable to a plurality-based investment and governance structure, and many of them work internationally as well.
Just one quick, illustration I'd give is, a default way of thinking about international relations is free trade. Reduce the subsidies, reduce the tariffs. An alternative is, imagine each country is doing QF internally. New form of international economic cooperation could be to set up a joint QF fund for projects that bridge between the two countries. You see what I mean? So that's like a different way to conceptualize international relations. I saw a question over there. Yeah.
First of all, thank you guys. You changed my mind. Literally today, my mind was blown up every time that I went into a workshop or either a conference. For me, it has been very overwhelming with all the information, but at the same time, very clarified. You opened my mind a lot. And I want to ask, I come from a Latin American country, Mexico, and I want to know the use. If you can think in a use case for plurality in an emerging country like Mexico, because as you might know, transparency and and maybe can be an issue for government, but I think it's very useful. So can you give me your opinion about maybe how can we use plurality in an American country? Latin American country?
We actually got an incredibly enthusiastic reception in Latin America, and we're working with leaders in Chile, Argentina, and Colombia right now on a variety of topics. Sovereign AI to help defend the values of those countries, because a lot of the AI models are very secular, and people care a lot about religion in those countries and about the values that people there have. So we're thinking a lot about steering AI in conjunction with the Holy See to be amenable to the Catholic tradition, for example. Another one is the idea of Argentina as a home for open source, because open source projects are very mistreated. They don't get treated like NGOs. They don't get treated like nonprofit. So Argentina is very excited in changing that and defending cryptography and making it a home for open source and cryptography. Another example in Chile, huge failures of constitution process there because of lack of trying to make consensus. So the interest in using some of these tools for those. So those are some examples. And one last one I'll give is Taiwan. If you spend 8 years contributing to Digital Commons, Wikipedia, YouTube, GitHub, you get permanent residence in the country with the highest median income for at PPP. So you think it's good for Latin Americans come to the United States? Much better to go to Taiwan. So
you can check out Taiwan Gold Card.
Encore.
Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Yeah. One of the theories of change for societal change says that change comes through 4 dimensions: law, culture, tech, and markets. I kind of get the first 3 in the context of plurality. Can you talk a little bit more about where markets come in and the private sector in this architecture?
I guess I'll take that. I'm the economist. So, look, I think markets are number one place where it comes in because there is no more appropriate scale of cooperation in many ways than within companies. Companies have a huge problem because they're broken up into many divisions that need to cooperate but are constantly in conflict with each other because of organizational incentives. So if you can use these tools to get them working together for the common interests of the company, that's how you avoid disruption. That's how you get bottom-up innovation. That's how you keep the company alive and fresh. So we have a very vibrant community of people using plurality for business purposes. Okay.
So that's all, folks.
Live long and prosper.
Yeah, live long and prosper.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Let's give one more round of applause for our panelists today. Thank you all. Wow.